Happy Tuesday. Today we are continuing our topic of things to prioritize and look out for when working with older women. And today's topic is it's better started early, okay? Because it's older women who are going to start experiencing these problems. So the earlier you start, the better. And I'm literally talking puberty. Starting early with strength training, laying bone and balance training, and your female client will be set up for life later on down the track. Now, having said that, if your clients are already 60, it's not too late to start. But ideally, you are working at building bones and balance by her 40s at the latest. Okay, that's ideally. So it might be obvious for you, but falls prevention, staying strong, staying balanced, and getting up off the floor when you do fall are priorities with your older female clients. Okay, and there's a few reasons why women are at more risk or higher risk of falls, and they're also at higher risk of being injured. They live longer. Admittedly, it's only about 4 or 5 years on average. So as age advances, so does risk of falls. Women are twice as likely to develop osteoporosis, which is low bone mineral density, which make her falls more consequential, like she's more likely to break a bone or experience a fracture. Women are more likely to develop sarcopenia, which is low muscle mass, throughout their lifetime as they get older, and it makes them less balanced and less able to rise again once they do fall. Women are much more likely to live with chronic pain or what we call comorbidities, frailty, depression, which makes a fall more likely as well. So here's a few stats to complete this picture. The number one cause of frailty in the elderly is inactivity. Frailty alone increases the risk of fall, as well as injury from the fall, including death. Like, it's a big deal. The number one barrier to exercise in Australia for women is pelvic floor dysfunction, which is reversible, improvable, curable in 80% of women, okay, through movement and exercise. Falls are the leading cause of hospital injury, hospitalisation, and death in Australia. Now, get this, of 43% of all people who have a fall end up in hospital, 56% of those are women. And women make up 53% of deaths as well. Over half of all falls involve a fracture, and there are 24,000 more women every year breaking a bone than men. So if pelvic floor dysfunction is preventing women from exercising, then we need to remove that obstacle first, okay? Get them in with a pelvic health physio before we train her long term, because the kind of training she needs to do to build bone, build muscle, build balance, even if she's 80, is heavy weights, is plyometric and impact and direction change training, both of which are really hard on the pelvic floor and deep core. So once she's seeing a physio and once you've got the deep core on a path to recovery, first priority is functional balance, the kind of balance that involves standing and moving about, slipping, tripping, and reacting. Okay, it's not bird dogs or standing on one leg, although maybe you'll start there and build out. So you test it and measure it with reactive tools. So I like the Blaze pods, and I'll put a link in the I've lost all my notepads. I'll put a link in the blog when it comes to writing this up. I like timed single leg balance exercises. So she's on one leg, she's balancing, and then she's doing a movement, and then you time how long she can do. I like, say, getting a battle rope and laying it out and seeing how far along that she can walk and balance. And I like sort of increasing difficulty to measure balance. So, can she stand on one leg? Can she stand on one leg and move her arms? Can she stand on one leg and catch a medicine ball? Can she stand on one leg with her arms in the air holding a ball, so center of gravity up, with her eyes shut? And then if she can, for how long? that sort of thing to measure functional balance. Um, I train balance by mimicking real life situations. So, but in a controlled and safe way. So, obviously, I can't train tripping over a gutter safely, but I can train like quick reactions. So I can train balance, 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 go. I can train catching a ball. I can train um, performing a lunge and giving her a gentle shove on her shoulder, random intervals, random level shoves, so that she has to react and adapt. Can she do step ups on a variety of surfaces? So just like measuring distance with her eyes, getting used to something that moves a little bit, that isn't uniform or standard, that changes every time. So she has to adjust her perception. Uneven surfaces with uneven weights. Those sorts of things are functional balance for me. Floor to standing patterns is your next priority, getting up off the floor if she's fallen. So, yes, lunges train that, but they don't go far enough. You've actually got to lunge onto the floor like she's fallen there and then get up again. So, it's a burpee, it's a kneeling down and getting up again, it's a sit to stand. Now, the sit to stand test in terms of longevity is super important. I'll just show it to you. Um, Basically, it's about getting off the floor without your hands. So if you can get down and up off the floor without your hands, then you are in a good place in terms of longevity and long-term health. People that can't do that are more at risk of dying and falling, or falling and dying in that order. And then the next thing is actually another idea for Florida standing patterns is your Turkish get-ups. Okay, you can play with it. And then your last priority with your older female clients is heavy weights, which is for both sarcopenia and osteoporosis. They go a long way for balance improvement and falls prevention and from getting up off the floor. And it's the best anti aging tool we have on all the levels, collagen, muscle mass, heart health, etc., brain health, right? Um, so you can test, we're personal trainers are well versed in strength training. I just want you doing it with your older adults now. Don't assume because she's female and she's 60 that she can't lift more than 3 kilos. And I'd encourage you to start pushing her to lift more. So, for example, I've got a 71-year-old in my women's strength and conditioning session. She had chronic awful low back pain and her balance was leaving her balance was getting worse because she wasn't moving because her back pain was so bad. So what we did was we addressed the back pain. So I gave her like a nerve floss working with a physio and pelvic floor training, because pelvic floor training has an analgesic effect. And it's the only thing she hadn't really tried. She tried massage, osteo, physio, all the things for her back. She hadn't tried pelvic dysfunction, and it worked. And now she's lifting she's got a bung shoulder, so she's only lifting 3 kilos on one arm, but on the other arm she's up to 7 or 8. And then on her legs today she lifted 30 kilos, and that's after a month, and she's going to lift more and more and more. 30 kilos was a trap bar deadlift, so not a leg press. She'd probably be on way more than that on a leg press. But the point being, I've educated her and I've told her why. I've dealt with her deep core and her pain first, and then we're building out. And at the end of the day, lifting heavy weights also has a positive effect for most people and their back pain, as long as you're doing it in a careful way. So, on a side note, frailty doesn't just suddenly occur when you're 80. It is never too late to start working towards these things like well before that, as early as puberty, because that's when we're laying down our muscle mass, our bone mass forever, okay? At the latest, if you're not doing heavy weights, when I say heavy, I don't mean necessarily hard, okay? You can do hard weights in sets of 20 and they're not heavy. Heavy means you can't physically lift it more than 6 times, okay? And you've got to do that in a pelvic floor safe way, because they are 60 and pelvic floor dysfunction is an issue for that population. So that's change or tip number 2 for older women. Some ideas on how to assess it and how to train it and how to measure their improvement. And I've got another 4 or 5 up my sleeve for the coming weeks. I will see you same time next week.